So welcome back to our 12 days of beef. We hope that you've been enjoying all the beef recipes and tips that we've been giving you over the last few days. And today we have another special treat for you. We have Mr. Nick Patterson with Acres of Grace Farm. And Nick is going to show us how to cook up the perfect steak for your holiday season. So welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks, Janet. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Speaking of busy schedule, tell us a little bit about your farming operation.
Yeah, so my wife April and I and our son Axel, that's about 7 months old now.
Oh.
He's made 2020 very, very enjoyable regardless. But so we have a pretty diversified farming operation here in Clay County. So we're northern Middle Tennessee. We have row crops, beef cattle, of course, on a commercial cow-calf. We also finish out some of our own cattle to be able to sell to the public. And we're also a operator herd for a ranch out of Texas. So we love all things beef. And we also are pretty heavily involved in the forestry industry here in our literal neck of the woods. And then we also do tourism. So we bring folks to the farm here a couple times a year through various things, which 2020 has made a little odd, but we've still got to have some folks here to kind of see what we do and to visit with us for a little while. So.
Well, that is awesome. Well, we know I've seen you on social media before cooking up steak, so I know that you have some great tips that you're going to share with us. So if you were telling someone how to cook up the perfect steak for their holiday season, what is some of the tips that you would give them?
I don't know a lot about anybody else, but it's pretty cold out there today, and winter has definitely come to see us. And so I usually move my beef cooking inside. And really about all that takes for me is, I guess it'd be a good cast iron skillet to get a good sear on the steaks. And then we're going to put them just directly into the oven. And really, you can do the searing in just a couple minutes like we'll see, and then cook for 5 to 7. And honestly, I don't know that I don't like that almost as much as grilling outside. So the winter time is a time we just move our cooking inside and still be able to enjoy beef in all of its many forms.
So do you use any kind of seasoning or marinade whenever you cook inside?
I do. I am a salt fan. In my opinion, beef can almost not get too much salt. The trained chefs out there may disagree with me on that, and I would concede to them on that. But I think that's one thing. I use just a general steak seasoning of any kind. I mean, any of the different brands that are out there, most of them are centered around salt, of course, and then just some herbs and spices. So we'll just kind of rub that on top of the meat, just literally right before it goes into the pan. And then I usually finish the steak off with salt as it comes kind of out of the oven while it's resting before we cut it. And so those are just, I don't do a ton of marinades, especially doing the inside cooking, because it's going to kind of mess with the way that the beef is in the pan. So.
All right. So what cut are you going to cook up for us? What's your favorite cut of meat, or is there such a thing? You love it all.
I love it all. If it's beef, but today what I've got is actually a T-bone, and so.
Oh wow, that looks amazing.
It does. I'm gonna give you a close up here in just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of the pack here. So one thing I love about a T-bone are the two different cuts that you get to enjoy out of it. And so April and I are going to eat this steak here in just a little bit. And actually, we'll eat just one. So this one here is actually cut about 1.5 inches thick. So it's a little on the thick side, but you can always ask your butcher at your favorite grocery stores, or even if you use a local meats company, they can for sure be able to hook you up with something a little thicker. And that seems to work really well in the oven for the way that we're going to cook it. So the T-bone, of course, is really made of 2 different steaks. So you've got the characteristic T, which is made out of the bone. And on this side, we're going to have the We're going to have the New York strip. And then, of course, on this side down here, we're going to have the filet. And so
you really get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, you really do. So depending on whatever your favorite cut of, I feel like it kind of does something for everybody because folks really kind of like, the New York strip's going to give you that really beefy flavor with the hint of the ribeye, with the fat and the marbling that's going to be in it. And then, you can just really never go wrong with a filet. Now, what I like to do for the pan cooking is to go ahead and cut it off of the bone. And so, if you were grilling, that bone is going to help you get some flavor. But the reason that I do that is just to be able to get a little bit of a better even cooking on the two different pieces of meat, as we'll see here in just a minute. And there's another little trick that I use on the pan cooking that cutting it off the bone helps with. This is how the viewers know it's live. It's taking me too long to get this off.
Well, hey, that's all right. I always say beef is worth waiting for. You can't rush perfection. So.
Absolutely. Well, and with something this good, you want to make sure you get right up against that bone and don't leave, not leave any beef on there. So.
Absolutely, yes. So, do you always use a cast iron skillet? Is that what you recommend?
I do. Now, of course, really, we're going to need something that's oven safe, and so a lot of our cookware these days, where it's non-stick, is not necessarily oven safe. So, of course, we have to be careful of that. And cast iron has just always been a good go-to. I guess for one reason, it gets a really good even sear on everything, and so it's kind of been my favorite. The cast iron here at the Patterson house always stay good in season. We don't we don't have to worry about that because we're always using them to cook with. So.
I'm just taking it all in. I know that our viewers that are watching is probably just taking
it all in. So we've gotten it off. So there's that characteristic T-bone. Of course, there's going to be a little bit left, but I've got most of it off. There's what our filet, what the New York strip is going to look like cut off. And this guy had a pretty good sized filet, so that's going to be really good for here in a little bit. So. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my pan on because we want it really good and hot because we want to sear. So we're not necessarily going to cook in the pan on the stove. We just want to get a really good sear on all the sides of the meat, just so when we get in the oven, we're trapping all the juices, so hopefully they'll stay inside the meat a little bit better. And I put it on high. Of course, we have a gas stove here, but any type of stove that you're going to use, I would recommend going on high, just because we really want that really hot temperature to sear the meat quickly, so we can just quickly get it into the oven. And I go ahead at this point and put my seasoning on. So there again, just any sort of steak seasoning that you may like it. And I'm fairly liberal with it. There again, the salt is going to melt away into the beef, which is a really great combination. And I do salt and season all the sides. So even kind of the ends of both the steaks. That's another reason that I like to cut them off of the bone, is so we get those couple extra sides of meat that we're going to season and also sear. It'll also kind of, the seasoning itself a lot of times will leave you with a good kind of crunch on the very outside. And then of course the inside will be really nice and juicy.
I've decided that all of this technology that we have, even though it has been great during 2020, I really wish that I could be there when that comes out of the oven.
Oh, and that's the
truth. Doesn't seem fair.
You'd think that maybe during this someone would have invented some smell-o-vision or something.
Yes, I know.
Could kind of smell it as it's cooking. So I'm gonna step over here just real quick and get my tongs that I'm
Okay.
gonna. That's one thing we need an oven safe pan, but we also need something that I don't want to reach in with my hand, and I want something because I'm actually gonna be moving those steaks over, and so we want to use something that's also very heat tolerant. So I've got about the cheapest pair of tongs I could find. But,
hey, that
it's
will
real
work just
cheap.
fine.
Yeah, they work just fine. But so usually what I'll do is just kind of keep waving my hand over the pan, just making sure that it's to the temperature. I mean, we do want it really, really good and hot. And one of the things that I really like to do with this T-bone cut is instead of using butter or oil or other things that you would use to kind of help pan sear other meats, the great thing about beef, and particularly about this cut, is we have all this wonderful fat on the outside of this New York strip. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put that fat side down and just kind of render some of that fat off and use as the cooking liquid in the pan to sear the rest of the New York strip and the filet. I believe our pan's about ready, so I'm going to go ahead and put.
Ooh, I hear the sizzle.
Yeah. That's what we're looking for. We're really looking for that sizzle. So I don't know if you can kind of see from afar, but I had it literally just placed down right on that fat cap of the strip, and I kind of give it a minute. Of course, it's going to take just a few minutes to kind of melt some of that fat off. And another cooking tip with the filet, we typically don't want to put it on at the same time as the strip because it's going to be a smaller piece of meat. So we're going to try to get the same sear on it, but where it is smaller. And it also would be good for a pair of folks. If somebody likes something more well done and somebody likes more medium, you could get the filet more done than the New York strip is going to be. I'm going to get my they're Christmas themed. It's the time of year, right?
So on
just over here where folks can see, and I don't know, it may be too dark, but
oh yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, you can see if you can just kind of take that strip and put all over the pan, you'll see there's already a little bit of oil kind of collecting there in the bottom, and that kind of helps get a good sear. So we'll just go ahead and turn that over, and basically we're listening for that good sear every time. That's what we want. And I usually do one side of the strip before I before I put the filet in. There again, just kind of decreasing the cooking time on it where it's smaller.
I bet your house is starting to smell so good.
It already does. It sure does. With a lot of these steak seasonings where they have the herbs, they really you put off the beef smell with the fresh herbs, and it smells really, really good.
Oh yes.
There again, there's the sear that we've kind of got on that filet
that looks
there.
Awesome. So is it about ready to go in the oven?
It's ready to go. So I'm just kind of inspecting all the sides. If I see a side that needs just a couple more seconds on the sear, right before I put them in the oven, I kind of rub both of them around to just kind of get more of the oil kind of flowing. And then it's just going to pop right into the oven. And so I typically just go ahead and set my timer for 5 minutes to kind of be on the lower end.
So let's talk a little bit about letting it rest. So do you cover your steaks in full or do anything whenever you're letting it rest?
Typically what I do in this cast iron skillet is a lot of times by the time they're done cooking, you will have amassed, of course, some more juices down in the bottom of that pan. And so I will typically tip the pan over and kind of base some of that juice back over the steak, and then finish off with the salt. And then I don't typically cover them, so I just kind of let it rest there for a minute or two before I put it onto the cutting board and go to cutting. Mainly, I divide it up for us into two. We get equal parts New York strip and filet.
Oh, well, that sounds like a good deal. And speaking of that too, another thing that's great about beef is there are so many options. And I know sometimes it can be a little overwhelming for consumers because there are so many beef options. But that is a great thing for consumers because you can get things like a top sirloin, and that's a little bit lower price point versus your filet mignon or your T-bone like you're showing us tonight that has the filet mignon in it. But you still can get a great eating experience if you cook it right.
Absolutely. And, and another thing too, I think in the last, particularly last 20 years or so, cattlemen, all of us out here in the field, we really are thinking about the consumer in mind when we're out here in the field tending our cattle, because that is eventually something going to be on someone's plate.
Yes.
And, I think there have been a lot of advancements in not only breeds, but knowing what the consumer wants that we've been able to address here on the farm so that those consumers can be even more confident about the beef that they're eating, the price that it's at, and the eating experience that they get from it. And it really does all start here with us on the farm.
Well, let's see it. I can't wait to see it.
Once again,
looks so
smell
good.
Of it. Yeah. So once again, you'll kind of see there in the bottom of the pan, kind of the drippings coming off of that. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that juice that's kind of fallen down and just keep kind of basting that steak. Now, you could take, you could take these steaks out of the pan. Particularly on that filet, I can tell it's probably on that medium rare side. I guess I watch a lot of cooking shows and like cooking videos. And one of the things that I noticed about like all of the top steakhouses in the country, when the steaks come out of whatever type of, and honestly, a lot of them are oven roasted. A lot of them are cooked inside in various types of ovens. One of the things that they love to do is finish it with salt. And so I have like just their fancy salts that April bought for me birthday one time. And I just usually do like one last little sprinkling, kind of right before I'm about to cut them. And to be honest with you, within just a few seconds, while it's still hot, the salt's melted away, just melting down in there to really blend with the meat and the fat really well. So we'll cut into our strip first.
It's a perfect medium.
Yeah, a perfect medium. And so that's what I was going for. And then we'll cut into and actually that filet was a hair thicker, so it's actually going to be a hair more on the medium rare side.
Yep.
Now that, of course, that cut through the very thickest part of that filet. So it probably could have used maybe another 30 seconds or so on the sear, but I've got a feeling I've got a feeling it's gonna taste just fine. So.
Oh yes, I know it will. Well, Nick, I want you all to be able to go and enjoy your meal. We appreciate you so much taking time to be with us for our 12 days of beef. Is there any other tips that you want to give our viewers?
No, the one thing that I would say is that regardless of where you're getting your beef, it all started with a farmer out there somewhere that takes pride and joy in raising their animals, and then them eventually at some point in their life winding up on the consumer's plate. And so I hope that that all during the holiday season, beef will find a place in people's kitchens and around the tree, dinner time, whatever it is for folks this holiday season.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We hope that everyone has a very Merry Christmas and keep coming back for more of our 12 Days of Beef.